Hello everyone and welcome back to another AFK journey video. In this video I want to talk about which PvP charms should you be focusing on crafting first after your Dream Realm heroes are sorted. So as you can tell here, I have my key heroes Ludovic, Smokey, Shakir, Taylene, Lily May, and Mikola with their almost their best charm options, and Phraesto I have mythic charms, and that's all you need. You don't need to give him a full set, you just have to get mythic or mythic+charms for the basic stats. Now if you had Harak here as well, then you would have to get Harak charms too. That is really important, the balance charms for Harak. But for the other heroes, that is basically it for me for Dream Realm. Now for PvP. So for PvP, you're going to want to take a look at which heroes do you use the most in Supreme Arena. Because Supreme Arena is the seasonal mode which will take advantage of charms. Regular Arena will not get any advantage for the charms. So take a look at your Supreme Arena defenses, which heroes you're using. Okay, so for me specifically, like I'm using my Scarlita Stroll team, Thorn, Scarlita, Floribel, Haywin, Damien. And then I use Molar teams on the other ones, usually like Shakira, Mikola, and Phraesto, heroes like that. If you have a hero who you're using in PvP and you have Dream Realm charms already, for example, like I use Smokey on my PvP, I use Shakira, I use Lily May, I use Mikola. They already have charms for Dream Realm. I would not make it at all of a priority to get another set for them purely for PvP. It is arguable, like for example, like the charms they have for Dream Realm, they're not really considered maybe optimal for PvP, but they'll do the job. Basically, they're still a great option. Get your other heroes at least to a mythic+charm set before you even begin think about getting PvP charms for them. Now, one thing I will mention, for me, if you have Phraesto built, I have been using him on all of my Supreme Arena defenses this season, and he does really well. And I think it should be a priority for you to get these sturdy charms. It will increase his tankiness with the HP %, and it will increase the amount of times he can cast his ultimate to get healing from that, and also good damage with the energy on hit. And also this will help him minorly in Dream Realm as well with the energy on hit for damage. So I do think sturdy charm for Phraesto is going to be a priority, and even for my account it is going to be a priority. So if you have Phraesto built, that is something I recommend. Now what I want to come to is I'm going to go class by class, because basically when it comes to sweeping Dura Trials, you want to be sweeping a class which has the most number of heroes which you actually use. For example, supports is always the best option, because when you take a look at it, Damien, Haywin, Rowan, Coco, Mikola, Rainier, Ludovic, Smokey, all of these heroes you're going to be using. I'm using actually almost all of them in PvP, and I'm using of course Ludovic and Smokey and Mikola and Dream Realm and Rainier. And so for example, even if like you are able to clear to a high enough floor and you can select, like let's say I want to get Haywin charms, even if I don't hit Haywin, I can hit some other support and it can still benefit me. So I like sweeping the classes that have the most number of heroes that I want the charms for. Now, there's a bit of a problem because, like, look at it. We have Smokey, Ludovic, Mikola already charmed up. We don't need their charms, and so there's less value now for sweeping support, but there's still overall good value. Still, there's a high number of heroes you can hit which are useful. Okay, now talking about their charms. Rainier, in my opinion, the only thing you want to prioritize on Rainier is getting him some sort of mythic set of charms for the quality bonus. This is going to increase his attack boost at the beginning of the match. This is good for Dream Realm, and it is good for PvP. I use him in my Supreme Arena defense in front of Shakir. The attack buff would help him. But you don't need to go for a specific set. Like, the sets for Rainier only increase his damage output, which I mean is fine, but is not really important in PvP or in Dream Realm, because he's mainly a support, right? He is not really there to deal damage. So I would say get a mythic set for Rainier, and hopefully you can just get it naturally without having to focus on him like in your hero select. Now for me, Haywin is going to be one of my big priorities, and I want to tell you why. Well, Haywin and Coco both, but Haywin charms specifically, the recovering charms which give her health and healing and skill power. It increases the effectiveness of her healing and shielding by 22%, and it increases basically it heavily reduces the cooldown of her revitalize skill. It is going to be a 6-second heal that will be reduced down to 1 second with 5 skill power, which is pretty crazy when the HP drops below 50%. And then also it will have a dispel of debuffs once every, I guess, 0 seconds. 4 minus 5 is actually -1, but I don't know how it's going to work, but basically heavily reduced cooldowns, and then also more effective healing from Healing Wave. And she's a key hero I use on my support team, my Stroll team with Scarlita, so she is going to be one of the supports that I prioritize for PvP. The other support I'm going to be prioritizing for PvP is Coco. And for Coco, I want to get her the mythic+ sturdy charms. This is going to increase her tankiness, which so she can survive longer, and give her energy on hit, a pretty high amount of energy on hit, to cast her ultimate more quickly. Because the quicker Coco can cast her ultimate, the more chance your team has of winning. And I've been using Coco every week in my Mauler Supreme Arena defense. I think she's a really good option. So that is another big priority. Now, as for the other heroes here, if you're using Rowan, he is important to give him the I think these charms, the wizard charms. Ultimate power you want to get on him, so either sorcery or wizard, and healing effectiveness is going to be better, so wizard charm, but you can also go for sorcery charm. They're almost the same. Even sorcery charm will improve his healing somewhat, but you want to give him ultimate power because that is going to increase the energy boost he gives to allies from 320 up to 470. And if you have like a light bearer buff tile team, or even Rowan on the light bearer buff tiles, this is going to be a massive boost for your team. And so I would definitely recommend getting his charms if you're using a light bearer team around Rowan. Damien charms also are going to be important. Basically, you're going to be giving him the ultimate power and healing charms again, the wizard charms, and this is going to increase the tankiness of his toy chariot from 85% of the max health of Damien up to 135%, which basically means that after you summon it, it is probably always going to remain there and continuously grant healing and haste to your team, and then at the end of his duration, it will just explode into the enemy front line and cause them to be blinded and deal that high damage. So Damien also really important. And in Supreme Arena defenses, you're running a lot of these support heroes. Like, for example, for me, I'm actually running 6 of these heroes: Smokey, Mikola, Coco, Haywin, Damien, Rainier. Some people could even run more than that. And so support is a great class to begin with and begin thinking about crafting. Now, I'm going to talk about some carry heroes. So for Dream Realm, Harak is also going to be a priority. So you want to get the balance charms onto Harak if you have Harak built. And even for PvP, he can work fine with the balance charms. They might not be the best for him, but they would do just fine. But two other key carry heroes, if you have Diurnal built, giving Diurnal the sorcery charms is going to be a huge upgrade. This basically increases his ultimate power damage by a lot, from 190% per hit up to 265% attack multiplier per hit. Also more damage from his Starry Void from 155 up to 230%. And then you have Nectar Feast, more value of the buffs provided to himself. The attack percent increase from 25% up to 35%, and attack speed from 25 to 40. These are really big boosts. He's going to benefit a huge amount from sorcery charms, so if you haven't built, he's going to be key. Now for me, I have Scarlita as my carry for PvP, and for her, she also has really important charms. The destructive charms to give her execution, that means 50% bonus damage to opponents who have below 50% health ratio, and 5 ultimate power increases, and her ultimate should be dealing true damage if she has enough surviving allies. And 220% attack multiplier is going to go up to 320%, and she can just knock people off with this, and getting that ultimate power is really huge. So she's a big priority for me as a carry that I'll want to be building up. Some other priorities in the warrior class, now that we've come to it, Floribel is going to be pretty big for me. I use her on my Scarlita Stroll team, and so I will want to be eventually crafting these charms or getting them. But if you don't use Floribel, you can pass on this. The HP will increase her tankiness, which is good for a Stroll team, and the 5 ultimate power will increase the tankiness of her Spiny summon at the beginning of the match from 80% up to 155% of Floribel's max health, which again is not going anywhere. If you have 155% of Floribel's max health summon up in the front, like, it's basically not going to die. It's going to be really difficult. Another key one, interestingly enough, is actually going to be the Brutus, because Brutus, you want to give him these insight charms, the HP and skill power. He gets massive value from the skill power. It will taunt enemies for longer, but that's not really as important. He will become unaffected when taking the first fatal blow from 5 seconds up to 10 seconds. And not only unaffected, he'll be immune to all damage. And I believe that is also for the 10 seconds. Like, imagine how much more Stroll factor for your team by triggering this ability. And not to mention the HP percent as well. So Brutus is going to be a big priority for the warrior class. Okay, let's move on to the rogues. So the rogues, it depends. Like, for example, me, I'm not really using Iron that much because in this meta, he's countered with all of the immunity to crowd control. Sylvina and Vala are good if you're running them on offense. You can even use them on defense or, for example, in hidden tiles. Or if you're using them, they can be a priority for you. But for me personally, it will not be. And then Seth can be used in a Mauler team. Lenya can be used if you have her built up. So I can briefly just recap the best charms. So for Iron, it is the Cheetah charm, which gives him haste and HP percent. For Sylvina, it is arguable, but the sorcery charms seem pretty good. It increases like her first strike damage and her blade vortex damage at the beginning of the fight. And so I think sorcery charm seems pretty good for her, and that is what I would recommend. For Vala, most likely Reaper charm is the best to try and get an execution, like higher damage onto enemies who have lower health. And for Seth, it is going to be the one that gives him skill power, which is the, I believe, Mystic charm, because, or it could also, it's actually, I think, the Arcane charm, yeah. Attack and skill power, because the skill power is going to increase the value of his stacks from his Bloodlust. But attack, I think, is better because you're already going to be getting haste from your Bloodlust, and haste has, like, diminishing returns. Lenya is going to be Butcher charms, and Soren, very importantly, is going to be Arcane charms. You want to get skill power for him, and Arcane gives him attack as well. And Soren is going to be insane with the charms. Basically, his deflecting swing goes down to a 1 second cooldown. He can keep triggering this massive damage reduction and being able to recast Repel Sweep whenever this triggers. So these are some key upgrades for the Rogue class, depending on which heroes you have on your account. Okay, moving on to the Marksman. So Marksman is kind of an interesting class because really, for me, and I think for a lot of people, they're not going to be many priority targets here. A lot of these heroes are not used in PvP. It's mainly only Odie on Mauler buff tiles or Diona. And for me, I don't have Diona built, so it's only Odie for me. So here's a class that you might want to consider just crafting charms for. Specifically, you're going to want the Gale charms onto Odie for attack percent and attack speed to increase his damage, because then you don't have to sweep here. And the thing is, if you're sweeping Marksman, you can get spillover charms of other Marksman heroes which are not really going to benefit you. Now Merrily can be good for Dream Realm, and like Overloaded charms are best for Dream Realm if you're using her for that. However, if you have the meta heroes built up for Dream Realm, you're not going to be using Merrily, so it'll be up to like basically your account level of progression. So for me, it's only Odie from this, so I'm probably never going to try to sweep Marksman unless, for example, I can't clear a high floor of the other trials, or until like I have all my other charms sorted. Then I can just charm out all of the heroes here. Okay, but Marksman, that is the thing about that. Now, Tank, there we talked about Phraesto, and I think that's a pretty important priority. The other important priority is going to be Thorin if you use him, and I think you should always be using Thorin on one of your teams. He can work well in Mauler buff tile teams like Soul Pacting Odie, for example, and I use him in my Scarlet Stroll team. For him, you want to give him the Bear Charms, HP and Vitality. Vitality increases the effectiveness of heals and shields onto him. HP percent increases his tankiness, which is really important for stall teams and just Thorin in general. Other heroes here which can be good in PvP, on Tundra, which you want to give her the HP and skill power. The skill power will increase the effectiveness of her shielding to the frontmost ally at the beginning of the fight, not the thumbs up one, the Insight charm, which give the skill power. For Granny, you want to give her the energy on hit and HP, like the Sturdy charm, basically, which is the same one that you have as Phraesto if you're using Granny. And apart from that, if you're using, Timisa is not really used that much, but for a Lightbearer team, you could think about using her, and Eagle Charm will be good. The tankiness and ultimate power to increase her true damage from her charge. Alamus Charm is going to be the Bear Charm for PvP to increase his tankiness and effectiveness of his heals and shields onto him. Lumont is going to be important. Lumont, you want to give him the charm which will give him skill power. In my opinion, because it increases his tankiness and it increases his basically stun duration. From his Totem Ward, he's going to get more shield, and from his War Stomp, he's going to have a longer stun duration. And the thing is, when you're using Lumont, I like to use him on the Mauler buff tile, so he teleports right into the enemy team, and he will stun adjacent enemies for 1 plus 0.25, so up to 2.25 seconds with the 5 skill power, and the skill will be reducing cooldown by 1 second for every enemy hit. So imagine you go into the enemy team, let's say you stun 3 of them, and then that reduces the cooldown of this by 3 seconds, and this is a 2.25 second stun, and then you recast it, and then you recast it, and like, it's going to be crazy crowd control that he has. So Insight Charm onto Lumont is a big thing, and I have been experimenting with Lumont. This week I'm probably not going to be using him, but last week I did some experimentation with him, and he did well, like with Tassi on the Mauler buff tiles. Okay, so that is the tank heroes covered. Now we only have left mage. So for mage, your Talene should be covered because you want to get blast charms for her if you have her belt, because that's a priority for Dream Realm. That's one of your top priorities. Then what you want to do is your other heroes. Now, Arden and Carolina, you can run them in PvP Supreme Arena if, for example, you don't have better options like in an Iron Nuke team. However, this season they're weaker because of the Muller, Wilder, buff tiles, and Valley Shield spell, which make heroes immune to the crowd control. They lose their effectiveness, but you can still do it. Like, they're still fine in PvP. You can still run it, and for that it would be the Arcane Charms onto Carolina for attack percent and skill power, and for Arden it would be the Mystic Charms for haste and skill power, because the skill power will increase and prolong the duration of his entangling vines, basically effect of the entangling from 2 to 3.25 seconds, and also it will give him more energy recovery for when the enemies are crowd controlled. So by Iron or by himself, he will get more energy back to keep cycling his ultimate. Another key hero for PvP is going to be Elsa. In Elsa, the thing for PvP is I think the best charms for her are going to be the thumbs up Mystic Charms, because the skill power will increase the stun duration of one of her abilities and also increase her damage multipliers. Haste will increase her skill casting frequency. But for Dream Realm, it's considered that Overloaded are the best if you're using her there, and for that you're going to want the haste and crit damage always. But they're really similar, honestly. And also there's one thing about the skill power which makes me want to think that it might even be better for Orison, because it increases the stun duration from 2 seconds to 3.25 seconds, which can help reduce the fury of the boss even more with this ability. So I have a feeling that even for Orison, it could be better to be running the Mystic Charm. So I think those are really good for Elsa. And okay, Parissa is not really used that much, but if you want to use her, the best charms are going to be haste and attack speed, just to increase her damage. Now we come to Tassi. Now Tassi is a key PvP hero, but there's controversy around Tassi. So I'm going to try to explain it like briefly. I don't fully understand it because I actually haven't tested it, but someone told me about this and it has been mentioned before. Basically, on the Lightbearer buff tiles, naturally there's some bug which causes Tassi to apparently have 2 shadows follow up casting their ultimate after Tassi casts her ultimate. So basically you get 3 ultimate casts instead of 2, which is as intended, or how it should have been. So, but the problem is when you give her ultimate power, because then it prolongs the duration of her first ultimate, the hypnotization, then for whatever reason it only follows up with 1 shadow after it, and so actually the team becomes less effective in the Lightbearer buff tiles. Like, Tassi becomes less effective in Lightbearer buff tiles due to the bug when you give her ultimate power. And so for Lightbearer buff tiles, whether it's be for AFK stages or if it's for PvP, if you're running around Lightbearer buff tiles, Acute Charm is better. The attack for damage and haste for is also a really good offensive stat. However, if you're running her on Mauler buff tiles or you're running her off the Lightbearer buff tile, then it is important to have the ultimate power because it prolongs the duration of your hypnotization, dealing more damage and more crowd control. And for example, for me, I run Tassi mainly now in Mauler teams or off the buff tile, like I'm going to try her on the energy tile in map 3 this Supreme Arena. So then Blast Charm is better because it gives you attack and ultimate power to prolong the duration of your hypnotization. So that's the thing. It's just kind of like a weird thing due to, like, I guess the bug with the Lightbearer tiles. But maybe if that gets fixed, then the Blast Charm will be better everywhere. But for right now, it depends where you're using her, and just keep that in mind. Okay. But anyway, guys, that is going to be it for this like cover of the key PvP heroes I will be crafting. So for me, first, it will depend, of course, on whichever trials were offered, whichever classes we can go for. But I will try to go for support first. I usually always do that when I'm sweeping because there are a lot of good support heroes you can hit, and the key upgrades like Hayo and Coco are going to be big for my PvP teams. But another thing just to keep in mind is that just getting mythic charms, like not even the mythic plus completed set, just getting those mythic charms for the boosted quality bonus, that is going to be valuable on all of your heroes, and also the boosted basic stats. And so that is another thing, and what I will just recommend overall is try to do that. Try to get all the heroes that you use, try to get all the mythic charms as quickly as possible, and then you can gradually get mythic plus charms on top of that. But just getting the mythic quality bonus as well as the basic stats is a big upgrade in and of itself. but then of course, getting the desired set effect is another huge upgrade as well. Anyway guys, hopefully this is helpful. Let me know what you think about this, and let me know in the comment section which charms you're going to be crafting for PvP first. But I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll hopefully see you in the next one. And until then, everyone, peace out for now, and thank you for watching.